All right, today we're stepping out of the familiar, comfortable world of the operating room and right into the Wild West of anesthesia. We're talking about non-operating room locations, or what's known as Nora. And that really is the critical question, right? What happens when you leave that fortress of control? Because suddenly, anesthesists are dealing with a totally different playbook in places like MRI suites, cath labs, you name it. The rules are different, and the risks, well, they just multiply.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start by exploring this new territory. Then we'll dive into the invisible dangers lurking there. After that, we'll tackle the tricky shared airway problem, look at some really complex cases, and finally, we'll put it all together into a Nora master plan for safety.
All right, first up, anesthesia's uncharted territory. Let's really dig into why working outside the OR is such a different and, frankly, demanding ballgame. I mean, just think about it for a second. The OR is a fortress of control, right? It's designed for one thing, surgery and anesthesia. Everything's standard, it's familiar, it's right where you need it. But Nora locations, you could be in a dark, cramped room with equipment you've never seen before, and you might be miles away from any backup. It really is foreign territory. Okay, so beyond just the new location, there are these invisible dangers. We're talking about things you literally cannot see, like massive magnetic fields and ionizing radiation. This is where it gets really interesting. So we're going to look at two big ones. First up, MRI suites. The challenge there? A gigantic, invisible magnetic field. Then we'll move over to the radiology suites where the challenge is unseen ionizing radiation. So let's start with that magnetic field. And I'm not kidding, this thing is like an invisible giant. The power is just staggering. It's always on, and it's strong enough to turn a metal oxygen tank into a deadly projectile. This is not sci-fi, folks. This is a very real, everyday risk for the Nora team. And it's not just about flying metal objects. The challenges are way broader. Your standard ECG leads, they can heat up and cause serious burns. Plus, you're often in a remote corner of the hospital, you have limited access to your patient, and that patient has to stay perfectly still. Oh, and you also have to worry about potential allergic reactions to the contrast dye, gadolinium. It's a lot to juggle. So what's the takeaway? It all comes down to preparation. This quote from the source material is really the golden rule. Avoid ferromagnetic items, always have a non-magnetic assistant present. You have to check everything and everyone that goes into that room, and having that assistant standing by, just outside the field, that's not a luxury, it's an absolute necessity for safety.
All right, let's switch gears from magnets to our other invisible threat, radiation. This is the biggie in procedures like CT scans and anything using fluoroscopy.
And this is where we can decode the plan right from the source. When you're talking about CT scans, the team is laser focused on two key things: protecting themselves from radiation exposure and being ready for a bad reaction to the contrast dye. You can see here how the plan really adapts depending on the procedure. For a CT scan, having a crash cart with all your resuscitation drugs right there, it's totally non-negotiable. For a renogram, which is all about the kidneys, the priority is avoiding any drugs that could harm them. And then for something like daily radiation therapy, it's all about consistency. You lock in a safe plan and you stick to it every single time. Okay, moving on. Now we get to a totally different kind of problem. It's what I like to call the shared airway challenge. Basically, a turf war for a very small, very important piece of real estate. So here are two classic examples. In an EBUS, or endobronchial ultrasound, a scope is going down into the lungs. That's the anesthesist's home turf. So you've got risks of hypoxia and hypercapnia. Then, in a GI endoscopy, the scope's going into the stomach, which means you're worried about aspiration and issues from gastric insufflation. In both situations, you have two different specialists trying to work in the exact same tiny critical space. It's a real balancing act.
And this just shows you the level of detail we're talking about. Look at this quote for an EBUS where a laser is being used. It gets super specific. Use an endotracheal tube of at least 8 millimeters. And this is huge. Keep the fraction of inspired oxygen, the FiO2, below 40%. Why? To prevent an airway fire. It's a perfect illustration of how the anesthesiast plan has to be perfectly in sync with what the proceduralist is doing.
All right, let's raise the stakes even higher. In this section, we're looking at complex cases, high-stakes procedures where the patient is really on the edge, and it takes the entire team being on high alert.
And that brings us to the cardiac catheterization lab. This is probably one of the most dynamic, high-stakes Nora environments out there.
Think about it. Your patient is dealing with radiation, they're on anticoagulants, and at any second they could have a sudden arrhythmia or their blood pressure could just tank. You have to be ready for literally anything. And looking at the plan here, you see the key word is readiness. It's not just about keeping the patient comfortable. It's about having a defibrillator right there, ready to go. It's about being prepared to jump on a sudden arrhythmia or hypotension immediately. This is proactive anesthesia, not reactive.
So, that brings us to the grand finale. We've looked at all these unique challenges and dangers in different Nora spots. Now it's time to put it all together. Let's build the Nora master plan. And here it is. It's a universal protocol for safety, broken down into 5 simple steps. Step 1. Know your environment. You have to understand the specific risks, whether it's magnets, radiation, whatever. Step 2. Formulate a plan. Choose the right technique, the right equipment. Step 3. Monitor vigilantly. That means your standard ASA monitoring and maybe some extras like end-tidal CO2. Step 4. Communicate clearly. This is a team sport. And the 5th and final step, have an exit strategy. Always know what you'll do if things go wrong. These 5 steps are how you tame the Wild West of Nora.
So after all that, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. When you're faced with invisible dangers, turf wars over the airway, and these incredibly high-stakes procedures in places you don't know well, what's the single most important quality for a Nora anesthesist? Is it knowledge? Is it skill? Or is it something else, like just constant unwavering vigilance? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.